Should I rewrite my lead character? And no, I'm not talking about The Unwinding. I'm talking about my new feature film project called One Shot. Now here's the dilemma. The story is written with the main character Richie as English, but if I make him American, that choice opens up a lot more casting possibilities and could help to unlock financing, which is what's going to determine if this movie even gets made at all. So today I'm pulling back the curtain on how movies get made by telling you about One Shot, who Richie is to the story, and why this decision matters so much. Not just for me as the writer-director, but for the actual future of the film. Stick around because by the end, I want your opinion. From what I'm telling you, do you think I should keep Richie as he is or change him? Let's get into it. You most likely know me in the first place from my film, The Unwinding, and the feature version of that short film is in active development. Today's update is about this next project called One Shot. As a producer, I have produced feature films, a lot of small ones, a few medium-sized ones, and I've been involved in some television over the years. But as a writer-director, I haven't made a feature film yet. And to do that, I need something that has the biggest potential audience. And of my ideas, of the things that I've written and am developing, One Shot clearly fits the bill. One Shot is an ensemble drama with humor, romance, very contemporary themes. It focuses on two couples, four main characters. Our lead couple is Richie and his wife, Mary. As I said, Richie is written as English, Mary is French. Their best friends are Beth and her wife Paula. They are a lesbian couple. They all live in Paris, but Richie, Mary, and Beth all met in London. So let's start with Richie. As I mentioned, he's currently English. He's a novelist, and he had some early acclaim. His first book that he wrote, he got really good critical reviews, but it didn't sell a lot. It wasn't commercial. And currently he's under a lot of pressure, both professionally to try to make something happen as he's working on his follow-up book. And he's also juggling his personal issues because he and Mary have a young baby daughter, and there's massive financial pressure and more that I'll get into. So Mary is French. She went to London to study at King's College and perfect her English, among other things. While she was there, she met Beth, and they were roommates, and there's a backstory that the film gets into where they were also girlfriends for about 5 minutes in the scope of their lives. But they have a really, really strong bond, and all of them are just the best of friends. Beth is also English. She met Paula, who is Spanish and owns a boutique in Paris now. Beth and Paula moved back to Paris before Richie and Mary did. The idea with Mary is that her parents are aging. They need a lot of help in checking in, and they're about an hour outside of Paris. And so Mary took a job that moved her and Richie to Paris, and then they had their baby daughter here. And this way, Mary is able to check in on her parents, and it's as good a place as any to live. And also their very best friends, Beth and Paula, are here. So the four of them are sort of like a found family. But Richie and Mary's relationship anchors the story. And the themes of the film are ambition, compromise, love, and moral dilemmas. There are quite a few moral dilemmas as we go into this. So without giving away too much about the plot, the title One Shot is a double entendre. It means a few things, but on the most literal level, One Shot refers to the fact that Richie and Mary got pregnant the one time that they did not use protection, and sort of a surprise baby. But it's really more broadly about the idea that you often have one shot to either get something right or to make something right in life. And besides what I've told you, there is a lot that comes up throughout the story. Essentially, Richie and Mary agree to help Beth and Paula become pregnant. In this case, Beth is the one to get pregnant. And they do so in a unconventional yet very old-fashioned way. And trouble and much drama ensue. So that's kind of what I want to say about it right now. You can probably fill in the blanks pretty well. If you have questions, let me know. From what I've said, what do you think happens? Let me know in the comments. So let's get to the question of this video. Should I keep Richie English or make him American? So first, let me talk about casting and financing realities of independent films. So all films need a cast that is bankable relative to the size of the film, meaning the scope and the intended budget. It's really important and really crucial in an indie film like this, where you're not getting some wide theatrical release because you don't have a huge movie star in it, but you need someone with enough name and face brand recognition and value in enough markets around the world where financiers know that, oh, this movie should make its money back, because very few people want to invest in the film and lose their money. There are some patrons of the arts who will take some chances, and if they lose some, that's okay. But most people don't want to lose on the aggregate, right? People want their money back. So distributors figure out bankability by looking at history. They look at who the actor is, the projects they've done before. Now, films of all sizes need a bankable cast relative to the size and scope of that film. What is the budget or the projected budget supposed to be? What is the distribution that you're trying to get? Are you trying to be in theaters worldwide? Are you happy if you get like a streaming deal? Are you going to put it on YouTube and pray that people will pay to rent it or buy it? Everything in between. You need actors who give you the value for the budget that you're trying to raise, and that's how you get the money in the first place, is by getting actors attached who will unlock your financing. That's typically how you do this. It's very rare that a project gets its full financing in hand without having some actors attached. You typically raise some money that allows you to show to actors and their agents that you're serious and it's a real project and it's worth them investing their time and associating themselves with. But this is all a constantly evolving buffet of options that you have to pick a few things and put them together and hope that it's a meal. Hope that it actually is satisfying to the financiers and the distributors. And you have to have your cast attached. So the truth is that Richie is the role that the financing will pivot on. It's an ensemble piece, but they're really kind of four co-leads, but he's the biggest of the leads. So without naming names, I wrote Richie with someone in mind, an actor who I know. He's actually a very good friend. He's English. He has a track record, and depending on who you are and what you like to watch and where you're from, it's possible you even know this guy. He's not unknown. He has been a TV star to a certain degree previously, but he's not bankable to finance what amounts to a $4 million budget, basically, for this film. That's about what it will take. $4 million, or more accurately, about 4 million euros, which is a little bit more than $4 million, is what it's projected to take to do this right. And that figure, just so you know, allows a certain level of salary for each of those four leads, which that's actually a pretty decent chunk of the budget. To secure that amount of investment, I need someone more bankable than my English friend. Now, if I win the lottery tomorrow and I can finance this film myself, that guy is Richie. He's English. He's perfect. He's the type emotionally, physically, his character. He's very smart, really, really funny with a dry English sense of humor, but great at physical stuff, great at physical comedy, although there's not a lot of that in here. He is someone who is incredibly charismatic and a wonderful, smart actor. But we need someone in this role who is bankable to investors. And what do investors care about? Well, they care about what kind of sales the film is going to have. And typically what happens when you're putting a film together is you have your script and you get that as good as you can. So what matters the most is the script first and foremost. The director, and more on that and me in a minute, as it relates to this financing picture. But your stars are what gets you the financing. The financing comes from who is in the thing, as well as what genre it is, etc. So distributors around the world, there are many, many distributors that cover some deal with the entire world, some deal with a very specific hyper-focused market, and there's everything in between. But they will sign an agreement with you to pay you a certain amount of money when you deliver the finished product if you make this script that you have pitched to them with this actor or actress, right? Or these actors attached. If you get these people or people on a list, you might have a list of approved Richies or Marys or Beths. But distributors will say, if you deliver a first class quality production of this script, this project with people from this list, then we will give you X amount of money when you hand over the finished product. You can take, those are called pre-sales. You can take those pre-sales contracts to banks and get loans from that. Banks and private lenders will loan you money at a discount of what the final paper is worth. With those pre-sales contracts in hand, other financiers and investors have some confidence that the project is viable. It also gives them the confidence that they're not the only ones in the project if they were to put some money in, and it lets them leverage their risk. You're not asking someone just to write the check. I'm not asking any one person to write a €4 million check, although if you'd like to, please contact me and we can discuss this in some real detail. But that's unlikely. And it's not even really the best way to do this. That's sort of the crazy rich uncle school of indie film finance at a lower budget level than this. And you hear some stories where much bigger films than this had basically one crazy rich person who said, I'll do it and I can do it, so let's go. That's great. Those can work out wonderfully, but a more professional approach usually is better all around for a lot of reasons. So that's a conversation for another day. But I need someone who's bankable in this role of Richie. I already have a wish list for each of the other 3 roles, the 3 women. I have actresses who are very bankable within their specific market or region where they are famous. So a French actress, an English actress, a Spanish actress. I have people in mind who would be my first offers as soon as we have the financing. But the reality is that Richie is the linchpin role. He's really the guy in the middle of all of this. He's the one who investors want to see, someone they recognize and they know that he has a track record. And then, of course, there's the fact that I'm a first-time feature film director. So even having a couple of decades of producing experience at this point, that raises the stakes on how important it is for me to have a bankable actor. My script has gotten wonderful feedback. It would be immodest of me to tell you how good the feedback is. It's been wonderful to receive the feedback on the script from professionals who've read it. But the script alone isn't going to do it. It's gotten me a very interested investor who loves it, and she wants to do the project with me, but this casting issue is the core issue. So, back to the dilemma. Should I keep Richie as English or consider making him American? And why would I do that? Why would I even think of doing that? Well, Richie as English works perfectly in the story logic. It's a nice piece of the backstory. He was working as a bartender in London as a scrappy up-and-coming writer who had gone to some fancy writer's program at university and then was kicking around working on like that great first book when he got out of school, working as a bartender, met the then college students version of Beth and Mary, who were roommates, became involved with the 2 of them. So yes, they were a throuple. I mentioned it's very contemporary, right? They were a throuple for about 15 minutes of their lives. And later, though, Richie and Mary really became exclusive, and then Beth ended up later meeting Paula, etc. But they remain very, 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 very close. Not as close as they once were until that moment that I hinted at where they make the baby. But that notwithstanding, they're very best friends and they're like a family. So the alternative is that Richie is an American. And if I make him American, he would have moved to London for school and worked there about 12 or 14 years ago. So it's contemporary when we pick this story up. But if Richie becomes American, he went to London, 12 years ago and stayed, met his French wife, and then they returned to France for the reasons that I mentioned. I mean, none of that changes. So first, let's talk about what the benefits would be of making him American. Why am I even talking about this in the first place? Well, it broadens the casting pool significantly. There are just many more actors who are American, who are bankable, who could do Richie, would be a good Richie, and are attractive to financiers. There are just more of them. And the story logic still works if he's American. It doesn't actually change any of the plot. It's just a little bit of the backstory, a little bit of the color that you find out. But it does open up a lot of questions and issues and opportunities that I'm struggling with, which is why I'm making this video, to be candid about this and see if you watching have any thoughts. But it opens up some interesting things related to, okay, so he's an American in Europe, and he's in this situation that I've already painted a picture of. But given what's happening with America right now and Europe's feelings about America and vice versa, it adds tension, it adds some interesting creative things, but I'm not trying to do an America versus Europe piece. That's not the point of it at all. I don't have to focus on that, but if I don't address it, it's a missed opportunity for a little extra tension to kind of sprinkle a little bit on there. But it runs the risk of pulling the focus away in a way that doesn't help the overall story. This is something that ultimately I have to answer, but I'm curious from what I'm telling you, if you feel like you have enough information or you have a hot take, feel free in the comments, let me know either way. But I'm wondering if it diffuses the focus too much to make him American. I mean, losing that Englishness, it hurts. It hurts because there's so many little things from my actor friend's voice that I haven't, no quotes from him, but just things I can hear him saying my words. I've written these words with a specific English voice in my brain. And as an American, I could certainly rewrite Richie to where he has a very specific American voice and sense of humor. And as I said, it does offer some interesting moments of tension that when things start to go sideways, when the complications become some real crises later in the story related to the relationships I've told you about and something else that comes into play here, it opens up a lot of possibilities. But I'm just concerned that it takes away something that actually is tangible. It's a little intangible for me to express it, but I feel really strongly that Richie is an Englishman. However, I also feel like I would like people to see this other than if they read my script. I'd like you to be able to see the movie if this sounds interesting to you. Yeah, I'd like you to be able to at least see the thumbnail and ignore it on Netflix versus never seeing a thumbnail, So I'm really making this video in the hopes of accomplishing two things. One is by putting it out there, getting your feedback, seeing what people comment about or what they reach out to me privately about from having seen it, getting some extra ammunition for one or the other argument, and being able to get the feedback of you and the great collective who might watch this. But I'm also, by talking it out in this way and committing to sharing this, when I'm done recording, I'm going to clean this up a little bit and publish this so you can see it. By talking through it right now, I'm realizing how much I want Richie to stay English, but I also want to make the movie. And I could get into more details about this if I was teaching a MFA producing course, as I had done for years back in the day. I would spend 3 hours talking about this from a business point of view to people who already had a lot of backstory and information and knowledge of these things and would understand the dilemma and could weigh in on it with a informed perspective in terms of the business repercussions of this. For the sake of argument, if you don't already have the knowledge to determine the finer points of what I'm telling you, just take me at my word that it is the thing. It's a real thing in terms of the financing, and making the right choice is tricky. So I'll talk a little bit about the behind the scenes part of the process of making a film. What goes into casting decisions specifically? Well, it's really about 3 things. It's about fit, creative fit for the project, believability in the role, and the bankability. And I've been talking all about bankability with a little bit of discussion of fit. But, these short lists that I have for the various actors, I do have some American Richie possibilities in mind. Most of them are names you would recognize. None of them are names who are at the top of a big internationally theatrical movie that you've seen, but they're actors you would know, typically from TV or indie film or both. Some of these are people who work with me as a producer, or there's a channel that I can warm up and have a connection to them. But these are the kinds of trade-offs that you make in independent film, is figuring out the balance between the creative vision of what you're doing and then the business reality of how you get the thing done in the first place. So why am I so worked up about this? Well, at the risk of sounding slightly immodest, One Shot is worth it. This script is a lottery ticket for me. It's personal, it's contemporary, it's full of all these themes that I love to explore that have so much opportunity to make an awesome, awesome film. Humor, love, drama, tons of moral tension, tons of dilemmas, and it is just as inspired as The Unwinding is, just in a very different way. It's a completely different story, to say the least. I believe in my heart that if cast right and made the way I want to make it, it will connect with people very, very widely. So it's really important for me to make this, but I got to make it right, and I can't get it made unless I can get the money. So that's where we are. Okay, so bottom line, I haven't told you everything, but I've told you a lot. Based on what you know and what you think, your hot take, do you think I should keep Richie as English, or should I make him American? Please let me know in the comments below. I will read everything. I'm curious what would feel the most authentic to you as an audience member, as a potential viewer. And you can probably intuit a lot of the issues that would come up if I have him as an American, married to a French woman, living in Europe, etc., and what I would want to address to honor that setup, as well as the complications of doing that well. Doing it right and doing it well. So the next updates will be about casting and progress toward financing. But if you have anything you want to ask me about in the meantime, let me know in the comments, as I said. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon.